So I just recorded like half of this video and realized I didn't have my mic plugged in. What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Well, welcome back to the channel. It's time for a real weird episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit. Today, it's two patron requests. Mr. Debriquiki requests we learn about persistent bleed damage in any edition, but in second editions, it's just so much better. And Buffalo would like us to talk about Poison, the Alchemist and Rogue's best friend. The build's real weird, but I kind of like it, not gonna lie. Anyway, if you're liking what you're seeing, like, subscribe, and ding that bell. Achilles, ding the bell. He's sitting on my lap, and oh, he's gonna fall. Yep, there he goes. Stay caught up with all your Pathfinder first and second edition stuff today. This episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit was brought to you in part by Arcane. Welcome back, my friend. Now, let's dive in. So before we talk about the super big logistics of this build, let's talk a couple mechanics real quick. Bleed damage was bad in first edition because it was never much, it never stacked with itself, and it was really easy to get rid of. Also, a lot of things were just immune to it. In second edition, persistent damage happens at the end of each of your turns. I've screwed that up a bunch so far. Gotta remember, it's at the end of turn. As long as you have the condition, rolling the damage dice anew each time. After you take that damage, you roll a DC 15 flat check to see if you recover from the persistent condition. Usually these only last a minute, and there are a couple of things you can do to reduce stuff, as noted in the assisted recovery entry for persistent damage, but that's so much better than before. As we learned the hard way in Doomsday Dawn, unfortunately, demons aren't all like vulnerable 15 to an element anymore, but the things that are, if you set them on fire, there will be some effects. There are a lot of things that can do bleed damage in Pathfinder right now. And so there were a couple different ways we could take this build. Oh, hey, by the way, remember, patronage at any tier gets you access to the Google Sheet that this thing is on. It was between the Monk, the Rogue, and the Barbarian today, in terms of who was doing the bleed damage where. The Rogue doesn't need to crit to do their bleed damage, and so that was my first thought. However, we did decide to go with the Barbarian because their damage is just potentially so much more. Let's get down just straight to business into the build. Today, again, it's a Dwarf Barbarian. Honestly, this video is coming out a few weeks earlier than the Lost Omens character guide. Hobgoblins looked really good for this as well because we're doing Poison, so of course we will be archetyping into Alchemist. That said, an enormous amount of hit points, a buff to the stat that your will save is based on. None of those look bad on anyone, especially because in combat we're going to want to be in people's faces, attacking, punching. Poisons and truly the Alchemist archetype make us a lot more versatile than a lot of barbarians. Nevertheless, our primary mode of operation is go hit the thing. Now, maybe I was just feeling the like animal poison-y aesthetic for this one, but we will be choosing the animal instinct today. Man, I really wanted to tell you we were going to use the frog, because what even is the were-frog monster? But what few poisons we'll be using in combat with the injury trait, we need to do piercing or slashing damage. Bites no longer, strictly speaking, do all three. We didn't have a lot of extra feats either, so any of the barbarian grapple-y stuff we didn't take. If you would like to drop them or move some of these feats around, really it's kind of a toss-up between the bear and the cat. You could choose whichever, but by choosing the animal instinct, we ensure that our character, as often as possible, in combat, has both of their hands free. One of which to apply poisons, use poisons, throw bombs, so on and so forth. One of which to carry a shield. Our face functions more or less as our third hand because we can just bite with it. Seems real good to me. Our starting ability scores are Strength 18, Dex 12, Con 14, Int 14, Wisdom 12, Charisma 8. By 20th, we're looking at Strength of 24 with the Apex item, Dex of 16, Con of 20, Intelligence of 18, Wisdom of 18, Charisma of 10. Really quickly, so far as our skill feats go, the crafting ones look really good for us, especially if we're the only person in the party who's going to be doing stuff like this. Poison is still really expensive. Quick alchemy can get us some poisons, but it can't ever get us like Tears of Death, the big scary 20th level poisons. Those we will need to either purchase at steep cost, maybe by like at 20th level we can just go raid a castle and get that money, or make them ourselves. But most importantly, class feats, here we go. Moment of Clarity is first. You know why if you watched our Dragon Disciple video. It's still not bad at all here. You might take sudden charge at this level and then retrain later in the game, but Moment of Clarity is really huge for us later. We'll go ahead and grab our Alchemist Dedication next. This gets us trained in alchemical bombs and crafting, or maybe another skill, as well as Alchemist DC. You get the Infused Reagents class feature. You get a number of reagents each day equal to your level. You also gain the Alchemical Crafting feat. That's just amazing, and 4 additional formulas for first level alchemical items. Our advanced alchemy level is 1 and doesn't increase on its own, but we'll deal with that later. Quick alchemy is next. I might have screwed that up on the debut video, my bad. The guys at Paizo said I could screw up the first ones and it'd be fine, so meh. But the quick alchemy action's real huge for us in combat. Take one action, brew up a thing, use that thing for value. Next it's expert alchemy, which increases our advanced alchemy level to 3. By 10th, it will increase to 5. We aren't as good as the alchemist at doing this, so in return, we have to craft the big stuff rather than just snapping our fingers and having it. Nevertheless, being able to just snap your fingers and have some things is pretty neat, especially given how versatile the alchemist stuff is. We're going alchemist so we can get poisons, but that's not to say we can't spit out some heals too. Our big con, our 12 hit points and our 10 ancestry hit points are real nice, but that doesn't necessarily mean we might not want to grab a potion and chug it at some point. Alchemical Familiar is next. And on that note, I just want to say that since we've grabbed our last 4 feats as alchemist feats, I really like the pseudo-variant multi-class system. That is Pathfinder 2nd edition, because we're still getting barbarian buffs as we go. We just aren't necessarily getting barbarian feats. We're still good at smacking things around. We're still good at turning into... Man, I wish we were turning into a frog. It was going to be so cool. Oh well. We're still real good at turning into a bear and eating things. Familiars are great for everyone. We haven't really talked about this since 2nd edition proper came out, but I'm just going to keep saying it here now. A tiny thing with an intelligence score is really powerful. That power cannot be understated. Since your familiar is basically a little baby homunculus, some GMs might try to call you out on that, but remember, the alchemical familiar appears to be a small creature of flesh and blood. It might have some unusual or distinguishing aspects, but doesn't strictly have to. It could look just like a regular cat if you wanted it to, which makes for an amazing scout, but we mostly want it for extra reagents. We have infused reagents from the Alchemist Dedication. The Alchemist gets level plus int, we just get level. Our familiar helps us get level plus 1. Just don't ask where they came from, I suppose. There's no treasure in the litter box, I promise you. Come and Get Me is next. Time to actually take some barbarian feats, am I right? What used to be like a staple rage power for barbarians everywhere. For one action, you open yourself to attacks so you can respond in turn. Until your rage ends, you are flat-footed, and damage rolls against you gain a +2 circumstance bonus. If a creature hits you, that creature is flat-footed to you until the end of your next turn. If you hit it before the end of your next turn, you gain temporary hit points equal to your con mod or double your con mod on a critical hit. They last until the end of rage. That helps the barbarian's HP stay swingy, and it helps us hit things that can be really hard to hit without legendary proficiency. Also, the +2 circumstance bonus to damage is kind of scary. You being flat-footed is kind of scary, but remember we are attacking with our face, so we will have a hand for a shield. Stay modal, my friends. Next up, it's Master Alchemy. That advances our advanced alchemy level to 7. For every level we gain beyond the level we just took this at 12th, our advanced alchemy level increases by 1. It will cap at 15th. So we can't just snap our fingers Tears of Death, but we can snap our fingers and do a lot of other modal alchemist stuff. Again, the powerful stuff, we're just going to have to bite the bullet and craft. Anyway, next up, the other half of Come and Get Me from 1E. Vengeful Strike is a reaction. As long as you're under the effect of Come and Get Me, a creature within your reach succeeds or critically succeeds at an attack against you. When struck, you make a melee strike against the triggering creature. This strike doesn't count towards your multiple attack penalty, and your multiple attack penalty doesn't apply to the strike. It's like an attack of opportunity when someone hurts you. And done in concert with Come and Get Me, you could get a sizable portion of those hit points back after your resistance and your shield and things, should the bad guy have rolled low. Also, since we are building around poison, and somebody in the comments is going to poo-poo me for this one, mechanically it works, just don't bite your tongue. I don't see anything wrong with applying an injury poison because you can apply them to weapons or unarmed strikes that do piercing and slashing damage to your bare teeth. Again, just don't bite your lip, don't bite your tongue. Don't do this with contact poisons. It's real bad. That would not be good. Do not do that. Read the bottle first. Clearly mark the ones that you want to put on your skin. Man, the snake would have also been really flavorful too, but I like the agile claws on the bear a little better. Especially because those agile claws go up to a D8 as you level in the barbarian, to say nothing of that scary D12 bite. Next up, the other side of why we took Moment of Clarity, once again, the Wizard Dedication. Because our next feat must crit to get the value. Brutal critical, get to the chopper. On a critical hit, add 1 extra damage die. This is addition to other dice, blah blah. The target also takes persistent bleed damage equal to 2 damage dice. 2d12 bleed. How do we assure that we crit a bunch? Well, if they're flat-footed, that's a great way to do it. But also, basic wizard spellcasting next up gets us access to at least sometimes True Strike. Mighty Rage is a free action. When you rage on your turn, get a free 1 action, Moment of Clarity. So it's Rage, True Strike, Strike. Assuming poisons have been applied outside of combat, there you go. You've exposed them. As for our ancestry feats, Unburdened Iron helps us keep up in armor, Halfling Luck helps us reroll bad saves, Guiding Luck, the 1-2 punch of masterfulness, then Mountain Stoutness for some extra hit points, then Vengeful Hatred, unless you really just want some lore or you think Meld into Stone once a day will be good for you. For our general feats, of course, we're adopted by halflings, then we'll grab Shield Block because the barbarian doesn't get it, then Toughness, Die Hard, Canny Acumen for our worst save, our reflex save. Now let's talk a little bit about poisons. Unfortunately, most of the really good poisons in the game are contact poison. By Raw, a contact poison is activated by applying it to an item or directly onto a living creature's skin. The first creature to touch the affected item must attempt a saving throw against the poison. If the poison is applied directly, the creature must attempt a saving throw immediately when the poison touches its skin. Again, don't put those ones on your teeth, your gums are going to tingle, and then you're dead. Oopsie daisies. Contact poisons are infeasible to apply to a creature via a weapon attack due to the logistics of delivering them without poisoning yourself. I think gloves is the logistics we're looking for there. But raw is raw. Fortunately, contact poisons have 1 action to activate them with the interact action. Then, I assume as part of the interact action, we get to tag them with it, pour it on them. This will provoke sometimes. But that's how we gotta do it, rather than hitting them with injury poisons. I don't make the rules. Injury poisons are applied to a weapon. When you strike, if the strike is a success and deals piercing or slashing, they're exposed to the poison. Inhaled is also a thing too. A 10-foot cloud worth of poisonous smoke. Yeah, that doesn't sound bad at all. Like I said, there's a lot of tech here. Flavor to taste, have the answer for when you need it. That is the power of the alchemist. But let's do a little bit of math, shall we? Now, I'm not going to talk about Tree Razor today. I'm going to hold off on talking about Tree Razor, at least on camera, until I find something that can actually, contend with him. Right now, I really haven't. So we're still going to push forward. I decided rather I wanted to compare our math against things that could fail their saves at least 50% of the time. So our opponent today is a big ol' scary ancient silver dragon at creature level 19. The strongest poison in the game right now, Tears of Death, again, is a contact poison, which means we'll have to run up and tag a dragon. I'm sure that'll end well for all of us. But it's a DC 46 Fortitude save, which the Ancient Silver needs a 12 or greater to pass. One of my favorite things about this build is everything that it's doing is non-magical. So all of the big scary stuff that gets that +1 to saves versus magic, yeah, no, we don't care about it. Haha! This poison is also virulent, which means that you must succeed at 2 consecutive saves to reduce a virulence affliction stage by 1. A critical success will only reduce it by 1, not by 2. The onset for this thing is a minute, so you've got to survive 10 rounds of combat with a big ol' silver dragon. That's where the healing and the barbarian HP comes into play, and don't die. But when this fires off, should it fail its save, it's 18d6 poison damage, and it's paralyzed for a round. It needs to critically succeed or get 2 consecutive saves to shake that off. On average, that's 63 poison damage. The silver dragon will be paralyzed, flat-footed, so it'll have an armor class of 43. Our proficiency and big ol' apex strength with some runes, so 36, means we only needed a 9 to hit it not paralyzed. A 7 will get there otherwise. Our hand wraps of mighty blows will ensure that our bites are fully enchanted and scary, and assuming we get that brutal critical, that means we're swinging for 4d12 plus 1 on a critical hit, 5d12. That averages 33 damage, plus 7 from our strength, plus 6 from greater weapon specialization. Again, we took a lot of alchemist stuff, but we're still getting barbarian value. Then 12 from the extra damage from raging is 58, or 116 points of damage on a critical hit. Then 2d12 points of bleed damage. We would grab us a wounded rune, but if you would gain more than one persistent damage condition with the same damage type, the higher amount overrides the lower. It looks like they don't stack. 2d12 will average at 13 bleed, which means after this kicks in that round that the dragon is paralyzed and then you hit it, this is not even assuming any other poison because, well, maybe you needed to prep something else or maybe the dragon had minions. That's just under half an ancient silver dragon's health. That's gnarly. It's also a character I never would have thought to put together on my own. It feels very Horizon Zero Dawn, I'll say. The barbarian has that live away from civilization, go out in the wilderness, get mad aesthetic. Our barbarian is smart enough to find all the fun pieces in nature, put them together, and then hurt people with them. I think that's really great. But what do you guys think? Have we played something like this? How has Poison gone for you so far? Let me know down in the comments. And thank you guys so much for watching. Next week on Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit, we're going to take something that didn't work in the playtest and see how it handles in 2nd edition. Probably my favorite class flavor-wise. We're gonna whip up a wild druid. See you then.